Welcome to Subscribe, continually updated.
So here's the thing about my family. They're the kind of people who treat a Sunday dinner like a corporate board meeting. My dad, Frank, ran a used car dealership for 30 years before he retired, and he never really stopped selling. Every conversation was a negotiation. Every hug came with terms and conditions. I pulled into their driveway around 4:30 that afternoon. My '67 Mustang was coughing a little on the way over, that same rattle in the engine I'd been trying to fix for 2 years now. One of these days I'd get it right. One of these days. The house looked the same as always. Perfect lawn. Perfect hedges. My dad's pride and joy was that grass right there. He'd spend hours out there with his trimmer, making sure every blade was standing at attention like a little green soldier. The neighbors all said Frank Thompson had the best lawn on the block. That was his legacy. A nice lawn. I grabbed the bottle of wine I'd picked up at the grocery store. Nothing fancy. $20. I wasn't trying to impress anyone. Been down that road too many times to count. Mom opened the door before I could knock. She must have been watching from the window. "Mikey." She gave me that look she always gives me. The one that's half hug and half inspection. "You're wearing that? Your brother's wearing a sport coat." "Good for him," I said. "I'm wearing a clean shirt. That's my version of dressing up." She sighed. Mom's been sighing at me since I was 12 years old. It's like her primary form of communication. "Come on in. Everyone's already here. Ryan and Lisa got here an hour ago. The kids are running around somewhere." The house smelled like apple pie. Burnt apple pie. Mom's been using the same recipe for 40 years, and she's been burning it for 40 years. It's almost impressive at this point. Like consistency is its own kind of talent. I walked into the living room and there was my brother Ryan, standing by the fireplace with a glass of scotch in his hand, telling some story to Uncle Bill and Aunt Carol. He saw me come in and his face did this thing where he tried to look pleased but mostly just looked like he smelled something bad. "Well, look who decided to show up," Ryan said, loud enough for the whole room to hear. "I was starting to think you got lost. You know, without GPS and everything." Couple people chuckled. I let it slide. You learn to let things slide when you grow up as the family disappointment. "Traffic," I said. "You know how it is." Ryan swirled his scotch around. "Can't say I do. I took the Lexus. Adaptive cruise control. Practically drives itself." Of course it does. Ryan's life has been on adaptive cruise control since he married Lisa and her father gave him a job at the firm. But you don't say that out loud. Not at these things. Dad came in from the backyard, wiping his hands on his pants. He looked at me the way you look at a repair bill you weren't expecting. "Mike. You're late." 4:35, Dad. "Dinner's at 5. I'm early." Early is on time. On time is late. Late is unacceptable. He said it like he was quoting scripture. For all I know, he thought he was. I handed Mom the wine bottle. She looked at the label and did that thing where her eyebrows go up just a tiny bit, and you know she's thinking this is the best he could do, but she'd never say it. "How's the garage business going?" Dad asked, settling into his recliner. The same recliner he's had since 1998. The springs groan every time he sits down, like they're protesting. I know how they feel. "It's going," I said. "Been working on some stuff. Got a few projects." Projects. He said the word the way other people say criminal record. "Your brother just landed the Henderson account. Biggest case the firm's had in 3 years." Ryan puffed up like a peacock. "It's nothing. Just a lot of long hours and hard work. And a father-in-law who hands you everything on a silver platter." But again. Things you don't say. Lisa came in from the kitchen with a tray of appetizers. She'd gotten her hair done. You could tell. It had that salon look, all stiff and sprayed into submission. Mike, good to see you. Still no girlfriend? Sarah from my book club just got divorced, you know. She's very nice. A little heavy, but nice. I'm good, Lisa. Thanks. Suit yourself. Can't be a bachelor forever. Clock's ticking. Everyone's clock is always ticking in this family. Tick-tock. Get married. Tick-tock. Get a real job. Tick-tock. Be more like Ryan. Tick-tock. The kids came running through the living room. Ryan's 3, Jackson, Emma, and little Tyler. Jackson was 10 and already had that look, that little Ryan look, like he was practicing to be better than you someday. Uncle Mike. Uncle Mike. Emma grabbed my leg. She was 6 and hadn't learned to be disappointed in me yet. Give her time. Hey, kiddo. How's kindergarten? Boring. Can we play? Mommy said you'd play with us. After dinner, maybe. But then Mom came out of the kitchen, wiping her hands on her apron, and she had that face on. The face that meant something was about to happen that I wasn't going to like. Okay, everyone. Dinner's ready. Let's head to the dining room. We all started moving that way, and I was already thinking about the roast beef, about getting through another meal with these people, when Mom put her hand on my arm. Mike, honey. We're a little short on space at the adult table tonight. Your Aunt Carol brought her new boyfriend, and Dad invited the Mitchells from next door, and well. She was doing that thing where she won't look at you. We set up a spot for you at the kids' table. Just for tonight. I just stood there for a second. Letting it sink in. I'm 35 years old. The kids' table. It's not a big deal. You're so good with the children. They love their Uncle Mike. I looked past her into the dining room. There was the adult table, all set up with the good china and the crystal glasses and the cloth napkins folded into those little fan shapes Mom learned from some magazine. 10 chairs. I counted them. 10. And then I looked over to the corner of the living room, and there it was. The little plastic table Mom used to set up when we were kids. The one with the Mickey Mouse tablecloth. She'd put out paper plates and plastic cups and a bunch of crayons scattered around like confetti. Jackson was already sitting there, looking at me with this smirk on his face. Mom says you have to sit with us, Uncle Mike. I looked back at Mom. She was already walking away, already moving on to the next thing, like she hadn't just told her 35-year-old son to go sit with the second graders. Take a deep breath. That's what I told myself. Just take a deep breath. So I did. And then I walked over to the kids' table and sat my grown-ass down on one of those tiny plastic chairs. My knees came up almost to my chest. Jackson thought this was hilarious. Daddy says you can't sit with the grown-ups because you don't have a real job. Did he now? Uh-huh. He says you play with toys all day. I picked up one of the crayons. It was orange. Burnt orange, Mom would have called it. She used to love that color. Your dad says a lot of things, Jackson. Here's a tip for when you're older. Most of the things people say more about them than they do about you. He just blinked at me. Too young. That's okay. Give him 15 years. He'll figure it out. From my little plastic chair, I could see everything happening at the adult table. Dad was at the head, of course, carving the roast beef like he was performing surgery. Ryan was to his right, Lisa next to him, already talking about some charity event their family was hosting. The Mitchells from next door were there. Old Mr. Mitchell kept looking over at me, and I could see the confusion on his face. Why is the adult son sitting at the kids' table? But he was too polite to ask. That's the thing about polite people. They'll watch you drown in a puddle and never mention the water. So, Mike. Ryan's voice cut across the room. Jackson tells me you're his new tablemate. How's the mac and cheese? Everyone at the adult table went quiet for just a second. Not a long second. Just long enough. It's good, I said. A little salty. That got a laugh. Not from Ryan. From Uncle Bill. Uncle Bill always liked me better anyway. Dad tapped his glass with his fork. The universal signal for I'm about to say something important, so everyone shut up. A toast, he said. To my son Ryan. The new senior partner at Henderson, Miller, and Burke. Making us all proud. Everyone raised their glasses. Even me. I raised my plastic cup. To Ryan, they all said. To Ryan, I said. Ryan stood up. Of course he did. He couldn't just sit there and take a compliment. He had to give a speech. Thanks, everyone. This really means a lot. You know, when I started at the firm 8 years ago, I never imagined I'd make partner this young. But I've always believed that hard work and determination. I stopped listening. Because Emma was tugging at my sleeve. Uncle Mike, will you draw with me? Sure, sweetheart. What do you want me to draw? A horse. A really big horse. I grabbed an orange crayon and started drawing a horse on the paper tablecloth. It wasn't great. The legs were too short and the head looked more like a potato. But Emma loved it. That looks funny, she said. Funny how? It looks like it fell down. I looked at my horse. She wasn't wrong. Yeah, well. Even horses have bad days, Emma. That's the horse on his bad day. She thought about this for a minute. Does he get a good day? Sure he does. Everyone gets a good day eventually. Just gotta wait for it. Ryan was still talking. Something about integrity and vision and the future of corporate law. I tuned him out again. Figured I'd heard it all before anyway. Dinner went on for about an hour. Mom's roast beef was dry as always, but the gravy helped. The kids' table got chicken nuggets and tater tots and those little cups of applesauce that come with the foil top. I ate 2 helpings of tater tots. Not gonna lie, they were pretty good. Every once in a while someone from the adult table would look over. Lisa had this pitying smile she'd flash at me. Dad wouldn't look at me at all. Mom kept coming over to check on the kids, and every time she'd pat my shoulder like I was one of them. Everything okay over here, sweetie? Just great, Mom. Having a fascinating conversation about which superhero would win in a fight. I'm Team Spider-Man. Jackson's wrong and he knows it. Spider-Man's not even that strong. Jackson yelled. It's not about strength, kid. It's about heart. Spider-Man's got heart. Mom just shook her head and went back to the adult table. That's when I heard it. The doorbell. Nobody moved at first. We weren't expecting anyone. Mom looked at Dad. Dad looked at Mom. Then Dad wiped his mouth and stood up. I'll get it. He walked out to the front door. We could hear him open it, hear some muffled voices. And then he came back into the dining room holding a large manila envelope. He was staring at it. Just staring. What is it, Frank? Mom asked. Dad didn't answer. He tore open the envelope and pulled out whatever was inside. I couldn't see what it was from the kids' table. But I could see Dad's face. All the color drained out of it. Just gone. Like someone had pulled a plug and all the blood just emptied out. His hands started to shake. Frank? Mom's voice was higher now. Worried. Frank, what is it? Dad looked up. Past her. Past Ryan. Past everyone. And he looked straight at me. Mike, he said. And his voice was strange. Quiet. Like he'd just seen something he couldn't explain. What is this? Everyone at the adult table turned to look at me. I put down my crayon. The orange one. I'd been coloring in the horse, making him a little orange saddle. I guess you'd better read it out loud, Dad, I said. Wouldn't want anyone to miss the news. Emma tugged my sleeve again. Is the horse having a good day now? Yeah, sweetheart. I watched my father's hands shake as he held that piece of paper. I think the horse is finally having a very good day. Dad didn't read it out loud. He just stood there, holding that envelope like it was a live grenade with the pin already pulled. His mouth opened and closed a couple times. No words came out. Ryan leaned over. Dad? What's going on? Is it a legal notice? Let me handle it. I deal with these things shut up, Ryan. 3 words I never thought I'd hear come out of my father's mouth. Not directed at Ryan. Not ever. Ryan's face went stiff. Lisa put her wine glass down with a little clink. The kids at my table had stopped eating cake. Even little Emma was quiet now, watching the grown-ups with big eyes. Dad pulled the paper out of the envelope. It was a check. I knew that because I'd watched it get printed 3 days ago. I knew the exact number. I'd typed it myself. He started reading the letter that came with it. His lips moved but no sound came out. Like he was whispering to himself. Frank. Mom's voice was shaky. You're scaring everyone. What does it say? Dad looked at her. Then back at the paper. Then at me. He finally read it out loud. His voice cracked on every other word. Dear Dad. This is a check for $1 million. It's a gift. No strings attached. I wanted you to have it because I know how much you've always worried about my future. Consider this proof that everything turned out fine. Thank you for never believing in me. It was the best motivation I ever had. Your son, Mike. Silence. The kind of silence you hear in a garage at midnight when the engine finally stops and all you can hear is your own heartbeat. $1 million. Lisa was the first one to move. She reached for her wine glass and missed it. Knocked it over. Red wine spread across the white tablecloth like a crime scene. Nobody even looked at it. That's not possible, Ryan said. He was already standing up, his chair scraping the hardwood floor. That's an obvious forgery. Mike doesn't have $1 million. Mike doesn't have $1,000. Last Christmas he gave Emma a hand-knitted scarf. It was a nice scarf, Emma said quietly. Ryan ignored her. Dad, give me the check. I'm calling the bank first thing Monday morning. This is clearly some kind of fraud. Mike's trying to embarrass the family, and I'm not going to. It's real, Ryan. I said it calm. Calm like I was telling him the weather forecast. How would you know? He was almost yelling now. What do? You sit in your garage and fiddle with car parts. You haven't had a real job in 5 years. Where would you get $1 million? You remember that diagnostic software I was working on? The one you said was a waste of time? The one Dad said was tinkering with computers instead of getting a real career? Nobody said anything. I sold it. 6 months ago. To a company in Detroit. $3 million. Now Mom sat down. Not gracefully. She just kind of collapsed into her chair like someone had cut all the strings. 3 million? She said it like the word was foreign. Like she'd never heard it before. 3 million, I repeated. After taxes and everything, I'm sitting on about 2.4. The check in Dad's hand is 1 million of it. This is insane, Ryan said. Completely insane. You expect us to believe that you, Mike Thompson, who still lives in the same rented house on Maple Street, who drives a car from the 60s that hasn't moved in 2 years, you somehow made $3 million? Yeah. I picked up my orange crayon and started drawing again. Just a little sun in the corner of Emma's coloring page. Funny how that works, isn't it? The car that hasn't moved in 2 years was in my garage because I was working. Every night. Every weekend. While you were playing golf and bragging about your billable hours, I was writing code. Ryan's face was getting red. The kind of red you see on a pressure gauge right before something blows. I want proof, he said. Right now. Not some printed check anyone could make on a home computer. Real proof. I figured he'd ask for that. I pulled out my phone. Opened my voicemail. Scrolled to one I'd saved 3 weeks ago. Hey everyone, quiet down for a second. I've got something for you. I hit play. The voice that came out was smooth and professional. The kind of voice that manages $1 million accounts. Mr. Thompson, this is Alan Pierce from First Detroit National Bank. Just confirming that your wire transfer of $2,437,000 has cleared and your accounts are fully funded. I also wanted to personally congratulate you on the sale. It's not every day we get a client who built something that valuable in their garage. Give me a call when you're ready to discuss investment options. Welcome to the club. The voicemail ended. Ryan didn't say anything. Lisa was staring at me like she'd never seen me before. Like I'd walked in wearing a completely different face. Dad was still holding the check. His hands weren't shaking anymore. They were just frozen. Statue still. He looked at the check. Then at me. Then at Ryan. Then back at the check. I don't understand, Mom said. Her voice was small. A little girl's voice. Mikey, why didn't you tell us? All this time you were. What, Mom? Successful? I put my phone back in my pocket. When would I have told you? At Thanksgiving when Ryan spent an hour explaining how I should get my act together? At Christmas when Dad asked me if I'd considered going back to community college? Maybe at the 4th of July barbecue when Lisa told her friends I was still finding myself? Mom's eyes were wet now. Tears. Real ones, I think. Mikey, we never meant, we were just worried about you. We always believed in you, deep down. I always knew you had something special. I told your father, I said, Frank, that boy is smart, he just needs time. You never said that, Mom. She stopped. Mid-sentence. Mouth still open. You never said anything like that. Not once. Not to me. And I'm pretty sure not to Dad either. The kitchen clock ticked. Still 5 minutes slow. Still stuck in its own little world. Lisa finally found her voice. Well, she said, smoothing down her dress. Well. This certainly changes things. Ryan, honey, maybe we should reconsider our plans for the summer house. If Mike's in a position to contribute to the family investments, we could pool resources, make something really. I'm not investing in anything, Lisa. Her smile froze. This check, I said, looking at Dad, is a gift. Not an investment. Not a loan. Not seed money for Ryan's next big idea. It's a gift. $1 million. Free and clear. For you and Mom. Dad finally looked up from the check. His eyes met mine. For the first time in maybe 10 years, he actually looked at me. Not through me. Not past me. At me. Why? He asked. Because I can. That's not an answer. No, I agreed. It's not. But it's the only one you're getting tonight. Emma tugged my sleeve again. She'd been quiet this whole time, working on her coloring page. She'd finished the horse. Now she was drawing something new. I looked down. It was a house. A big one. With a garage. And in the garage, a car. An old one. With flames on the side. That's your car, she said. The one that's gonna run someday. I drew it with fire because it's fast. I laughed. First real laugh I'd had all night. It is fast, Emma. Or it will be. I looked around the room. At my mother, crying silent tears into her overcooked apple pie. At my sister-in-law, already mentally spending money she'd never see. At Ryan, staring at his phone like it might explain how everything had gone wrong in 10 minutes. At my father, holding a check that weighed more than every word he'd ever said to me. And I thought about the rest of my plan. The part none of them knew yet. The part about the Children's Football League. The part where Dad's name would be on a big plaque at the community field. Donated by Frank Thompson, through the generosity of his son Michael. That was for tomorrow. Or next week. Or whenever I felt like dropping the other shoe. For tonight, this was enough. Well, I said, standing up. I was still holding the orange crayon. This has been a great dinner. Really. Best kids' table I've ever sat at. Emma, you want to finish your cake? She nodded, mouth already full of frosting. I took my plate from the little plastic table. Picked up the half-eaten slice of chocolate cake. Walked over to the adult table. I set my plate down right next to Dad. Right next to the $1 million check. Mind if I sit here? I asked. The chairs at the kids' table are kind of small. Nobody said no. I let them stew for 3 days. That wasn't by accident. You gotta understand something about me. I've spent 35 years watching these people. I know exactly how they breathe. I know the rhythm of a Thompson family panic attack. Day 1, they'd be stunned. Walking around the house like someone had pulled the fire alarm and then told them it was a drill. Mom would bake 3 different things and burn all of them. Dad would sit in his recliner, staring at the TV without turning it on. Ryan would call 4 times, each call getting shorter and more desperate. Day 2, they'd start rationalizing. Mike was always the smart one, Mom would say. I knew it, she'd add, like she hadn't spent 20 years asking me when I was gonna get a real job. Ryan would start calculating. Figuring out how much of that money he could redirect into the family's interests. Lisa would already be shopping online. Day 3, they'd be ready to collect. That's when I showed up. I drove the Mustang. For the first time in 2 years, that car wasn't sitting under a tarp in my garage with its hood up and its guts spilled all over the floor. I'd fired it up at 6 in the morning, just to hear the sound. That old 289 V8 rumbled like a bear waking up from hibernation. My neighbor Jerry came out on his porch in his bathrobe, holding his coffee. Holy cow, he said. You actually got that thing running. It was never broken, Jerry, I told him. I just had to finish something inside it first. He didn't know what I meant. That's okay. I did. The house looked the same when I pulled up. Dad's lawn was still perfect. The sprinklers had just finished their morning run, and the grass was so green it almost hurt your eyes. The American flag hung from the porch, barely moving in the still air. The newspaper was on the driveway. Nobody had picked it up. That was unusual. Dad always got the paper before 7. Always. I didn't knock. I just walked in. The door was unlocked, which meant Mom had been up since 5, praying or crying or both. They were all in the living room. All of them. Mom on the couch next to Dad. Ryan in the armchair by the window, the one Dad always sat in during football games. Lisa was perched on the edge of the ottoman, like she was afraid sitting too comfortably might cost her something. The kids were at school. Good. This wasn't for them. The check was on the coffee table. Still in the envelope. Untouched. Mike, Mom said, her voice cracking. She stood up, arms out. We were so worried. You didn't answer your phone. I was busy, I said. I didn't sit down. I just stood there in the middle of their perfect living room, key still in my hand. Dad stared at me. He looked older than he had 3 days ago. His eyes were red. He hadn't shaved. For a man who used to wake up at 5:30 every morning to trim his own hedges, this was like seeing a bear wearing pajamas. Son, he said. And I gotta tell you, hearing that word come out of his mouth after 35 years of being Mikey or the other one or just nothing at all. It almost got me. Almost. I'm not here to fight, I said. I'm here to settle things. Ryan leaned forward. He had his lawyer face on. I'd seen that face 100 times. At Thanksgiving when he wanted the bigger piece of pie. At Christmas when he was explaining why his gift cost more. At every single family dinner where he had to make sure everyone knew he was the important one. Settle things, he repeated. That's good. That's smart. I've got some paperwork drawn up, actually. For the investment. Family trust kind of thing. Protection. You know, for tax purposes. I almost laughed. That man had spent 3 days not sleeping, not out of guilt, but out of greed. He'd been sitting in that chair calculating how to get his hands on my money, and he had the nerve to call it protection. You don't need to protect me, Ryan, I said. I'm doing just fine. Of course you are, Lisa jumped in. Her voice was sweet like aspartame. Mike, we're all just so proud of you. The boys have been asking about their uncle. They want to know all about your company. We thought maybe you could come to career day. 3 days ago I was the uncle who colored with crayons. Now I was the uncle who could fund their college. Let me show you something, I said. I reached into my jacket and pulled out a folded piece of paper. It was a printout. An email. I'd been sitting on it for 2 weeks, waiting for the right moment. This is from the Midland County Youth Football League, I said. They've been trying to raise money for 3 years. New equipment, field repairs, scholarships for kids whose families can't afford the fees. You know how much they need? $50,000. Dad blinked. What's that got to do with us? I'm donating $100,000, I said. In your name. The room went dead quiet. The kind of quiet you hear in a car right after the engine stalls. What? Mom whispered. I walked over to the coffee table and picked up the envelope. The check was still inside. I pulled it out. Held it up. $1 million. My name at the bottom. Dad's name at the top. This was always going to the football league, I said. Every cent. I just wanted you to see it first. I wanted you to hold it. I wanted you to know exactly what you taught me. Dad's face went pale. I don't understand. You always said the family was like a team. You said in football, you either win or you learn. You said no slackers. No benchwarmers. You said a man's worth was what he produced. I looked at him. He looked at the check. Well, I produced, I said. And now I'm gonna use it exactly the way you taught me. I'm gonna invest it where it counts. Ryan stood up. Wait. Wait just a minute. You can't just give away $1 million. That's irresponsible. Is it? I turned to him. 2 days ago, you called the police on me. You said I was committing fraud. Now you want to be my financial advisor? I was just being cautious. That's my job. I was looking out for Dad. Ryan, you were looking out for Ryan. You've been doing it your whole life. Lisa grabbed his arm. Honey, let him talk. He's upset. Upset? I laughed. I'm not upset. I'm the calmest I've ever been. Mom stood up too. She was crying. Again. Mike, please. Please don't do this. Your father. He's an old man. He made mistakes. But he's your father. I know, I said. That's why I'm putting his name on the plaque. Dad's voice was barely a whisper. What plaque? The one at the football field. The big brass one at the entrance. It's gonna say donated by Frank Thompson, through the generosity of his son Michael. Everyone in town is gonna see it. They're gonna shake your hand at church. They're gonna take your picture for the paper. You'll be a hero. I paused. Let it sink in. And every time someone thanks you, you're gonna have to remember that you spent 35 years telling me I'd never amount to anything. You're gonna have to live with the fact that your name is on that field because the son you put at the kids' table wrote a check you could never write. He started to say something. His mouth opened and closed like a fish on the dock. No sound came out. Ryan stepped forward. You can't do this. I'll contest it. I'll take you to court. For what? I asked. It's my money, Ryan. I earned it. In my garage. While you were out playing golf with your father-in-law's clients. His face went red. That one hit deep. I'd always known about Ryan's little arrangement. How his big law career was basically a gift from his wife's family. How the firm was keeping him on because they didn't want to upset the hand that fed them. He was a benchwarmer in a fancy suit. Always had been. Mike, Dad said finally. His voice was strange. Broken. I was wrong. 3 words. 35 years. 3 words. I know you were, I said. I was proud of you. I just didn't know how to say it. I shook my head. No, Dad. You weren't proud of me. You were embarrassed by me. There's a difference. You don't get to rewrite history now. I put the check back in the envelope. Folded it carefully. Put it in my pocket. The donation goes through next week, I said. The league already knows. I've been working with them for a month. They're thrilled. They're gonna name the press box after you too. Mom was sobbing now. Lisa had her phone out. I don't know if she was texting someone or just pretending to. Ryan had sat back down. He looked like a balloon someone had let the air out of. I walked toward the door. Wait, Dad said. Please. Just stay. For a cup of coffee. Your mother can make coffee. I stopped with my hand on the doorknob. For a second, I thought about all the mornings I'd come over here and never been offered coffee. All the times Mom made a fresh pot for Ryan and forgot I was even in the room. I can't stay, I said. I've got somewhere to be. I opened the door and walked out. The Mustang was right where I'd left her. The engine turned over on the first try. She was running smooth now. 2 years I'd spent inside that car, coding through the night while everyone thought I was just failing to fix a broken machine. Turns out I was fixing me. I pulled out of the driveway and didn't look back. I didn't need to. Driving through town, I passed the football field. The grass was brown in patches. The goalposts needed paint. The bleachers had duct tape on some of the seats. I pulled over and just looked at it for a while. That field was where I'd played as a kid. Every Saturday. Dad had never come to a single game. Not one. He said he was busy. He had work. He had Ryan's debate tournaments to attend. I spent 4 years on that field, and the only person in the stands was Jerry from next door, who brought his own chair and his own cooler. Next month, that field was gonna have a new scoreboard. New equipment. New uniforms for kids whose parents couldn't afford them. And my father's name was gonna be on a plaque at the gate. He'd hate it. Every single second of it. He'd have to smile for the cameras and shake hands with people who'd never respected him before, and all the while he'd know. He'd know the truth. That his name wasn't up there because he was generous. It was up there because his son wanted him to choke on it. Maybe that's cruel. Maybe. But you know what else is cruel? Putting your 35-year-old son at a kid's table with a plastic fork and a coloring book and acting like it's normal. I didn't do this for revenge. I did it for the kids. The kids at the table. The kids on the field. The kid I used to be, sitting in the bleachers alone, waiting for a father who never showed up. The funny thing is, I'm not angry anymore. That's what surprised me most. Driving away from that house, I felt lighter than I'd felt in years. The anger was gone. The hurt was gone. All that was left was a quiet kind of peace. I drove past the hardware store. Past the church. Past the diner where Dad used to take Ryan for pancakes after his games. Never me. Never once. I didn't hate him. I didn't love him either, not the way sons are supposed to love their fathers. But I understood him now. He was a man who measured everything by trophies and paychecks and names on plaques. So I gave him exactly what he wanted. The biggest plaque in town. A few blocks later, my phone buzzed. A text from Emma. My niece. The one who'd colored with me at the kids' table. Uncle Mike, I want to ride in your car. It's really cool. I smiled. That kid. She was the only one who'd never looked at me like I was something broken. Soon, I typed back. I'll take you for ice cream. Any flavor you want. Even double chocolate with sprinkles and caramel sauce and whipped cream? Especially that. She sent back 4 heart emojis. The real kind, not the kind adults use when they want something. I put the phone down and kept driving. The road opened up in front of me. The sun was warm through the windshield. The engine purred like it was happy. Like it was finally getting to go somewhere after 2 years of waiting. I didn't know where I was going. Maybe the lake. Maybe just a long drive through the country with the windows down. Maybe I'd stop at Jerry's house and finally thank him for coming to my games all those years. For being there when nobody else was. The point was, I could go anywhere now. Nobody was putting me at any table I didn't choose. Nobody was deciding where I belonged. A year from now, that football field was going to be full of kids running plays and scoring touchdowns and falling in the mud. And every single one of them was going to see that plaque. And someday, one of them was going to ask their dad, "Who's Frank Thompson?" And their dad was going to say, "Some rich guy's father, I think. Never met him. He doesn't come to the games." But that didn't matter. What mattered was the field. The grass. The kids. The team. That's what I learned, I guess. Family isn't always blood. Sometimes it's a neighbor who brings his own chair. Sometimes it's a niece who colors with you when no one else will. Sometimes it's a whole team of kids who don't even know your name. And sometimes, the best thing you can do for yourself is walk out of one house so you can finally build another. I stepped on the gas. The Mustang roared. The road stretched out ahead of me like an invitation. I was going home. Wherever that turned out to be. The end.